So writing I is going to be, it's meant to be this sort of activity where you broaden, you start to go deeper into your subjects, right? So I was reading people's subjects like your traditional narratives and your new narratives and so on. What we want now is we want people to sort of develop and come up with more specific elements of their traditional narrative. Yes, you're going to have some stuff to say about your newer narrative because what I find is it's easier for people to understand what to say about the traditional if they also sometimes they think about the newer, right? The changing that happens. You're you're only going to write about the changing though later. This essay, after you do the annotated bibliography, is going to be based mainly in the traditional narrative. So I want people to start thinking about it. So this is just another one of the, like an exercise to help people think about what their two narratives are and try to get them and make them distinct, and also trying to find more specific things about them. Here's my example one. All right, writing I. So here, first you do three things. You put your traditional narrative, whatever that is, and I also said, right, the common belief or whatever. It's almost stereotypical beliefs, but you need to expand, right? So I can't just be, my traditional narrative is that everybody used to think you had to go to college to be successful. Okay, that's one sentence. For me to do this entire upcoming literature review essay on this, I need to broaden that out and be more specific about the elements inside of it. So here's what I got. I got students in America can become educated people and obtain good white collar jobs by acquiring a college education. So that's one of the beliefs that used to exist. Students can work their way through college. That's another one. Students will gain the information and knowledge they need from the traditional college learning environment and academic structure, meaning you got to go to college, you pay money, they give you knowledge and textbooks with information. That's how it has to be. So I want everybody to try to be able to name a few things in their traditional narrative. So it's not enough just to say people used to think, because like I said, you're going to be writing an essay about the traditional narrative. So you want to make sure that you've broken it up. Now, along with that, you want to make sure you have articles that help you establish the traditional narrative. All right, so you want to look at the articles that you found. Everybody, I think, did the 8 articles for last week and submitted the 8. So you now are looking at them and making sure that they, among other things, are credible, but also that they will help you do the traditional narrative. In fact, Shannon, the question you said if we use more than 8 sources on our list, I would say what you would do for this specifically is you really only need to do the ones that are really going to help you with your traditional narrative. All right, so say you have 12 sources or whatever, you're gonna use the 3 Fisher ones, and then I would say pick the ones that are going to help you do the traditional narrative, because that's really what this next essay is going to be about. And you save the other sources that you have to talk about the change. So that's probably a better answer than that. Okay, and then the idea is you're answering these questions. And this is trying to get us to start with this idea of breaking into and understanding our narratives, and then also seeing how the narratives have started to change, right? And identifying these things based on what we've read. So in what way has the coherence of the original narrative weakened or fallen apart? So something about the traditional narrative no longer works. Now, one of my suggestions to people was, since we need to connect it to the narrative paradigm eventually, one thing to do would be to answer these questions by thinking in terms of story, right, of the narrative. Plot, setting, characters. So I go, in what way has the coherence of the original narrative weakened or fallen apart? So my original narrative, I have these 3 things up here. And I'm going to say, okay, well, how has this changed? Plot. So one of the things that's changed in the plot is that this idea that you're going to go to college and get a good white-collar job has changed, because white-collar jobs are different now. Like the whole business environment's different. Also, the other plot part where you work your way through college is not happening, because that can't be done anymore. So I'm just identifying the elements, right? I'm calling them plot, setting, character. So setting has changed. How has that changed from the traditional world? Well, students used to need to be in an actual college, talking, listening to a professor, taking notes, doing quizzes, blah. So the setting was actually a college building, right? Obviously that has changed. And then the idea that you have to have textbooks because that's where information is, that's also changed. So that's part of the setting that has changed in my story, in the traditional narrative of education. Characters, how have they changed? Well, in the old version, professors had this certain role where they stood up there, they didn't know anybody's name, they just said things out loud and everybody. So I'll talk about how their role has changed, meaning there's more of a student-centered focus for professors and they're trying to instruct more than just like recite, I guess. And then students have also changed, meaning they're aware that they learn. They're aware of how they learn. Right? Before, nobody cared. You just had to sit down in your lecture hall, take your notes, do your quiz. Who cares if it like you totally never learn that way? You only no one cares. Like that's it. Now it's like, okay, now we understand people learn in different ways, so we try to have activities and do things that appeal to multiple learning styles and all that business. All right, next question is going to be, you're starting to identify the change agents, the things that have most changed your narratives. And I just listed some. There's plenty more, right? Money could be one. So in what way has something, technology, war, medical discoveries, money, disasters, I mean, there's a bunch. You're trying to think of these like things that change society, etc. And how has it changed like the universal value? So it's trying to be like some big thing happened and it changed from what we would valued here in the traditional world to what we value in the newer world. So for example, in the traditional world, we valued a person going and getting a college education. You basically had to read these certain books and you came out and you were a thinking, educated person, and that was of value just by that, right? You get hired in some other thing to do some job, but all we cared about was that you were an educated person. Okay, so the value of being educated has started to shift, and now there's this idea that people actually should have certain types of skills, right? Especially in this new world, especially since technology governs all the stuff. So I would say technology would be my main change agent, right? And it's the thing that changed from the value of everybody should be educated, education's good in and of itself, to people need to learn actual skills and how to do actual things. Okay, and then I'm sort of trying to get you now to think of both narratives, right? How it's going to change and the traditional, and be more and sort of draw it out and explain it more. So in my first one up here, I just sort of jotted down things that occurred to me. Now I'm going to try to explain things more, right? So I have to say, here's how professors' roles have actually changed. Here's how students have actually changed. Their way of how they learn, and then they're also more technologically distracted. That's just a fact of how things have changed. Plot, college costs have gone up. So I'm trying to be more specific and draw out. The information acquired in college is available elsewhere, and the requirements of employers has changed. Setting, I'm being specific, right? Not just, there's no more, you don't need to be in a school, like a college classroom. Now I'm actually saying there's online learning, you use devices to connect, you broadcast classes, you use learning management systems. Yeah, and I think this is another one where I'm sort of drawing out my first universal, number two, the universal value. I'm trying to explain it more. So in what way has the meaning and merit of the narrative alter, has it become stronger or weaker for people's decisions? So this means the value of the thing. So how has the meaning and value of going to college and getting a college degree changed? And has it changed so that more people are deciding to go to college or less people, right? Has it become a stronger or a weaker ground? So I'm going to say that the meaning and merit has changed from becoming a thoughtful, educated member of society, just what I was talking about. This is weakened because now that's not the only goal, right? So we don't value that as much as we used to. Becoming a thoughtful, educated member of society, we're like, okay, that's still there probably, but it's certainly not the only reason Now people start to go because they want to acquire skills and do certain things. So I'm going to say it's changed, and it's also sort of weakened the reason. Like becoming an educated member of society is no longer a super strong reason. That's what I mean by that. Okay, in what ways have the audience for the narrative changed from traditional to new? So this is where you need to think about who your audience is. Okay, and it's like people who participate, but it's also like society is always an audience of some sort. You would be like, in my case, I would say faculty, like college faculty, students, and society in general, employers. Like these are all the sort of audiences. And so how have they changed? And I just listed one. There's probably more, but I was like, okay, so people are becoming more skeptical about the value of college than they used to be. So society in general, right? As we advance and have more technological jobs, the idea that you need to, go to college and read books and stuff is becoming less and less important, something like that. And then in what way has some aspect of narrative fidelity changed? So remember, narrative fidelity, that's the faithfulness to narrative, I guess, means that these things, you're checking the story. So I'm checking my traditional story to see if the facts have changed, or if it's missing facts, the old story. What values are in the old story, and what consequences are in the old story, and what consistency, right? So the facts have changed. Tuition costs is a fact that has changed from the traditional in mine, and so has student debt. The value that's changed is skills are more valued than being educated. Some consequences, one at least is student debt, and I could probably come up with a bunch more, but I just wanted to give you an example of it. Okay, then so that's that part, and the last part is identify 3 main subjects or things to help you eventually talk about the change that will happen, right? And so I put it like this, and you might be able to, if this makes sense to you, this might just be the way to do it. Meaning you just say, okay, characters, plot, setting, and then you'll deal with it later. Right? How have the characters changed? How's the plot changed? How's the setting changed from traditional? Right? And so hopefully you're learning, you're finding information in your articles that help you know these things. But anyway, that's what I came up with, my 3 ideas, and that might be a good way to structure this just for the future essay thing. In any event, so that's writing I. Put in the 2 narratives, you answer these questions, you come up with, and you've thought about these things, and then you come up with these three possible ideas that you will focus on. And I actually, the more I think about it, the more I like these things as being like, it depends, I guess. I guess it depends on everybody's subject. Like if people don't have characters that have changed that much. So anyway, pick 3 things that you think you'll be able to use to be able to show the change from one narrative to the other, from the traditional to the newer. And then that's it. So you've thought about that. That's what writing I is.